Welcome back. You're officially on the Leadership Forum. And today, as I mentioned before we took a short break, we are discussing the power of excellence. Of course, we've got to measure what we're doing, but can we achieve the epitome of excellence, right? Is excellence a holy grail? Before we do that, we want to show you what is headlining the front cover of the Daily Nation. And here we go. Magufuli declared winner. Lowassa rejects outcome. That is what we have on the front cover of the Daily Nation. And on top there, the flag reads, CCM flag bearer got 8.8 million votes, says election team. But Chadema claims its candidate won with 10 million. And we have also the ruling party retaining the top seat amid celebrations in Dar es Salaam as candidate named winner on his birthday. Tanzania to have its first woman vice president. Also opposition says results doctored. All the stories, you have the gritty details of this on page 6 of today's Daily Nation. KRA blames cash crisis on job slumps. The Kenya Revenue Authority yesterday said that it had failed to meet its targets for tax collection for the first 3 months, I should say, of the year because of the slow jobs market. Low tax collection between July and September was one of the reasons the government has been in a financial crisis. All the details, you have them on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. There is a standalone picture here. El Nino ready for the floods. Experts warn rains to continue, and you can see the havoc that it's causing already. Flooded roads here. Motorists navigate a flooded section of Lunga Lunga Road in Nairobi yesterday. Heavy rains are falling, I should say, in many parts of the country, and where the experts are warning the downpour are expected to continue. That story, have it on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is what you're waking up to on the front cover of the Standard. What went wrong, Mr. President? A probing question poked there. Ordinary Kenyans share the pain of ruined businesses and wasted opportunities for growth as heavy borrowing and grandiose consumption force interest rates to skyrocket. And you can see the chapfallen faces of some of these faces here. Our profit margins have been wiped out by the higher finance costs. Timothy Muriuki, who's also the former chair of NCBD. We have also Frankie Reri, Nairobi. He's saying it is very tough for everybody. We have funding challenges and it's not good for business. How are those mega projects of concern to us if they are the cause of high interest rates? This is Joseph Njoroge saying this. Of course, Frankie Reri is the CEO of Housing Finance, amongst others. And all the stories, all the gritty details, you have them on page 3 and 4 of the Standard today. His Excellency Dr. Magufuli. Then you have the ellipsis, or alama, yeah, dukuduku, as they say. And you can follow this story on page 8 of the Standard today. Let's see what we have on the front cover of the People Daily. Nairobi fails El Nino test. Schools submerged. Major city roads, residential estates flooded after just one night of rainfall, signaling possible crisis if predicted deluge sets in. And you have this story on page 6 of the People Daily today. You can see a related picture there. A section of St. Elizabeth Primary School in Nairobi's industrial area was waterlogged following heavy rains that pounded the city and its environs on Wednesday. A quick look at the Star, which is up next. Where is 75 billion shillings Eurobond cash? Raila says money is not accounted for. Wants Uhuru to show projects funded. Says Rotich insists all money is accounted for. All the gritty details also you have on page 6 of the Star today. This is a splash. And also EACC clears Kimemia once DGC's Simiu Isiolo governor charged. Qatar reviews Waigoro's sack. These are some of the stories also on the front cover of the Star today. If you're waking up in Uganda, this is our sister paper there, right? And it says NRM primaries, what the new faces mean. Way forward, Party Secretary General says they're still waiting for a report on the largely chaotic polls before they can state their position on claims of irregularities. This story, you have it on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. There's a picture here of the beautiful lady, NRM Party Secretary General Justin Kasule Lumumba, arriving at a press conference at the party headquarters on Kayandondo Road in Kampala yesterday. And the People Daily, this is what you're waking up to today, the weekend edition. Supreme Court allows borrowers to sue banks for illegal loan charges. It's backing, or it is back to beginning as the High Court starts to hear a potentially devastating petition. And I know most Kenyans are really frustrated by the skyrocketing inflation rates, right? Standing right now at 27%. Of course, we heard from the CS yesterday saying that that is bound to go down, but it's just a very dismal change, only a 1.2 to 1.3 percentage that is really going down. And this story, you have all the gritty details on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Taxman reports 28 billion shillings first quarter revenue shortfall. This is what also is on the front cover of the Business Daily. And I want to show you also what we have on page 12 of the Business Daily, of the Daily Nation, I should say. And this is a caricature, editorial cartoon by Gathara. Let me try and see if I can. And it's all about the NGO board, which is depicted here as the vulture. And here is a face of, I think, the president. I'll leave it for you to decipher. And of course, we know the row that is going on between the NGO and some NGOs, the NGO board and some NGOs which are not remitting or they're not accountable with the donors' money. And this is what GASO has for you. Another one, the diplomatic passports. We know, and this is the face of Eden Canaan. We ran that story for you. So this is the editorial cartoon that has been aptly captured by GASO for you also inside the Standard. Tanzania election. I want to now swallow the key. I must make Nyerere proud. CCM, you know, is maintaining, right, the lead right now. Election skeletons. This is what Celeste has for you today in the People Daily. And at the back page of the Daily Nation, no, this we ran for you the story, so we don't need that. I want to show you what we have at the back page of the Daily Nation. Teachers sue over September salary. Unions want employer compelled to pay members who were on strike. You can grab a copy of the Daily Nation, grab a copy of the Business Daily or the Daily Monitor for those riveting stories. Now, things are changing around us every day. A person or organization that is outdated cannot be relevant to a contemporary world if you're still making use of your old manual typewriter. You remember it? When you're supposed to be doing your work with great speed on a computer. It may mire a lot of things. We must endeavor to update ourselves with new technologies. Excellence motivates, especially in an underdeveloped environment like ours. We should inspire the people around us by our actions. Our organizations should be places of inspiration. What is that unique thing for you that you have or your organization has that can inspire other people? Striving for excellence show people that we are serious about our assignment. That is what we are doing, and encourages them to want to be part of it. No matter how small a thing looks, if you have invested quality thoughts in it, people tend to appreciate and identify with it. Great works are as a result of deep thoughts. And of course, this is what we are focusing on this morning on People and Politics. We are on, and I walk on to the other side of the studio. Right, did I mention People and Politics? It is Friday. Oh, Leadership and Forum. Thank you, my director. The way I'm so mired in politics. Right, but it's good to see you this morning. So I want to give you the house rules that we normally have here on Leadership and Forum every Friday. I have my bell. Of course, you know what the bell stands for. When it's tolling, you know it's time for you to start. I will lift it in the mid of your speech just to show you that you're midway when it comes to time. You have 10 minutes, 5 minutes to time. I will lift it, warning you that now you should be starting to wind up or give us the punchline. And then finally, I will ring it, all right? You don't have to be scuppered. If you've not really collected your thoughts to finish, you can just, go on. I'll give you like 30 seconds to do that after time. So your camera is here. The camera 2. You're speaking to Kenyans, encourage Kenyans who are waking up this morning. They want to learn about excellence. Is it a holy grail? Is it something that we can achieve? Or is it just something which is very abstract, right? You'll break it down for us. So we're going to start with you, Esther. I have my timer here on my phone. I should just set it right. It is 7:12 right now. Let me just try and set it so that we can keep time. And we shall run your profile. Remember to walk on the podium. You have your mic with you. You can just remove it and put it at the back of the seat. But before we do that, don't do that yet. Yeah, I shall tell you when to do that, because I want us to talk about excellence a bit, just a chit chat for viewers to get to see the perspective of what excellence is all about. But I think you have all the full details of what is supposed to be happening. Right. Esther will be first talking to us character and leadership in Kenya. Character and leadership in Kenya. But let's begin with the nitty-gritties. Excellence. From your own estimate, Esther, what is excellence? We normally hear of the power of excellence. Be excellent in all you're doing. There's a good scripture that says, whatever is noble, whatever is good, whatever is excellent.
Yeah.
Think about these things.
Yeah. Excellence is a big part actually of what we strive to get our young adults to do. It's, it's being the best of what you can be. That's what excellence is all about.
Being the best of what you can be.
Yes, it's being the best and doing the best of everything.
Is there you know, like a ceiling to excellence that, yeah, I've reached, I'm excellent? Can we say that you're excellent?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that I believe is excellence is a personal journey. So
it's a personal journey.
It is. So you place the bar, and for that reason, you're not competing with anybody else. You place a bar for what excellence is for yourself, and then you compete against that. And that means you can, when you feel like you've achieved it, you can almost raise it further. And that means you probably never arrive, because you're always achieving to be better.
Fantastic.
If it's a personal.
So you need a benchmark to actually try and also monitor yourself alongside your benchmark. You know, Peter Drucker, the guru management, he says that what cannot be measured cannot be managed. Right. So you need to measure so that you can manage, and of course you can gauge your growth as well. Right. Dr. Vincent.
I couldn't agree with Esther more.
Yes.
I think that excellence is a personal journey.
It's a personal journey.
People might think there's an objective measure out there, that this is the standard for excellence and we have to measure everyone by it. But if we do that, we fall into problems. We'll say everyone has to go to Harvard, everyone has to live in Runda, you know, everyone has to be the CEO of a company, and it's just not going to happen. So what's going to happen with the rest of the people? So it's a personal journey. I think we all have a role to play in life. And so, as Esther says, it's being the best that you can be. Because if you play your role, the one you're supposed to play, wherever it is, and you do it really, really well, you're giving the world what it expects of you, what you're actually meant to give them.
Fantastic.
And so once you figure what you're supposed to give the world, and you strive to give it to the best of your ability, you're excellent.
Ah, fantastic. Chris.
It is a mindset.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset. Very difficult to really quantify. It's a mindset. It's a disposition. I believe in the Bible, and it says that as a man thinks, so is he. I am the configuration of my thoughts. I am not just the sum total, but I am my thoughts. Speech and works or deeds are the expression of thoughts. So if I do not think in a particular way, I cannot act in that particular way. So then it means that my mind has got to go a certain direction, because eventually my life goes towards a destination that my mind is inclined to. And you can find somebody, as Dr. Vincent is saying, that, you know, anywhere. You can find somebody who lives in Kibera but has a very excellent disposition, because they bring out the best of where they are and what they have and the time that they have, being able to nurture their gifts, their talents, their abilities, maximizing potential. And I like to break that word into two. Excel, I break it into two, X and cell, which would be to get out of the cell, you know, to go beyond what is expected or what is normal.
So initially, from the go-getting, there is a cell.
Yeah, you know, the normal, the normal is a cell, and whatever would want to contain you, and circumstances and resources and everything that is around you. And if you can get out and outperform where you are, I think that's excellent.
That's excellent. Right. Thank you. Phyllis.
For me, excellence is really about distinction and greatness, and it is a pursuit, because it's a journey. You'd never get to the end of it. It's the daily improvement and renewal that an individual does at their personal level to get to what they have set out to be in their view, the greatness that they need to achieve in this life.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. aptly put. Right, let's get down to it. We start with Esther. And Esther, here is a bell. I have it already. Of course, we shall run up your profile. Just walk up to the podium, and you shall be speaking this morning on character and leadership in Kenya. And just to give you a brief profile of Esther, which is coming up on your screen, right? Esther, she's going to be speaking to us. She's the CEO of Lapid Leaders Africa, an organization whose mission is to prepare young adults to be value-driven leaders and entrepreneurs in the marketplace. And as I mentioned, she's speaking to us on character and leadership in Kenya. She's got 10 minutes. Starting now, Esther. Let's go.
Thank you. Good morning, Kenyans. It's a privilege to be talking to you this morning. One of my greatest joys is just the fact that I'm a Kenyan and an African at this time. I think we live in an amazing time, and a time when Africa seems to be on the move and on the rise. And every time I look at the newspapers and I look at the social media, I'm excited at the times in which we live in. It looks like we live in times when there's amazing opportunities. I think the Global Entrepreneurship Summit that happened the other day was evidence of that we are living in amazing times. But I think in between all the amazing times and all the opportunities that Africa faces today, we have one significant challenge that I want to talk to us about this morning. It's a challenge of character. Every morning when I look at the newspapers and I look at the social media, I am one of those who lives in social media and also look at the newspaper, because I think you can wake up and find the country has changed. The one thing that strikes me is the level of corruption and the greed that has been entrenched within our society. And as typical Kenyans, we have a lot of solutions to the issues of corruptions. I think every day you cannot look at any newspaper and not find an issue has been raised around corruption. But we're quick to judge our leaders. We're quick to say that the problem is our political leaders. But this morning I want us to ask ourselves a question. What if the problem is not the politicians? What if the problem is us? What if the problem is our view of politicians? What if the problem is the society in general? A couple of weeks ago, probably a few days ago, we saw the conversation around exam cheating taking prevalence all over. And one of the things that struck me is the conversation with parents. Parents seem to defy the idea that cheating in an exam is a problem. In fact, in most cases, they're the ones who are financing this whole affair. They say that I need to make sure my student gets an A, and whatever it takes, I will do it. If it means I pay a few coins to a cop, or if it means I pay whatever it means, I will get my student to get an A. But then the question then is the problem the politician or is the problem the parent? A couple of weeks ago, I was in a salon and I was intrigued by the conversation that was happening between my salonist and the high employer. The employer just walked in last minute, and what the charges that the salonist had given me and the charges that the employer charges for this, whatever my affair was, were very different. And the employer just kept saying, why is it I have said that we charge, say, 500 shillings, but you're charging the customer 1,000 shillings? But I knew the answer to that. It's the salonist wants to make 500 shillings and go with it home. That's our society. When I go to and I meet a traffic cop, my first instinct is, can I give him 500 shillings and save myself a day? But the problem with this conversation is that it's become our personalities. In between us saying that the problem is the government, the problem has become our society. Every time I think about the issue about devolution, we've said, every Kenyan is saying that devolution is the problem, that we've devolved corruption. But I think even if we didn't devolve corruption, we need to go back to the fiber of our society. What are we made up of? Have we glorified money so much, or have we become so greedy that whatever it takes is what we're going to be doing at that moment? At Lapid Leaders Africa, we exist to prepare the next generation to be values-driven leaders and entrepreneurs in Africa. I think in the time that we live in, the question is not whether we are going to succeed. The question is whether we are going to have character within us. One of the things that I personally believe is that every generation has a purpose. I look at my grandparents, and my grandparents' issue was fighting for independence. And whether you agree with the way they did it or not, they fought for independence and they got that independence. That was their generational purpose. When I look at my parents, their generational purpose was probably around the multipartyism. Whether you agree with them or not, they delivered that. The reason I am able to stand here today is because someone fought for independence, next someone fought for multipartyism. I believe that we're in a time where the next generation of purpose is being fought, and the next generation of purpose is around character. We are going to have to ask ourselves, what do we want our children to be about? Do we want them to be to get an A, yet their character is destroyed? Do we want them to be CEOs who will do whatever it takes to be that CEO, but then when you look at the fiber of that CEO, there is nothing in between it. I believe as a generation, we need to begin to ask ourselves, who are we? What character are we portraying? Because that actually, I believe, is the generational purpose of my generation and many other young people. And that's the reason why we do conversation around around having values-driven leaders and entrepreneurs. So I have a question for you this morning. What is it that you're involved in the workplace? Are you applying character in it? And when we talk about character, we talk about different things. But I think for me, the three things that embrace character in the best way is excellence, which is what we're talking about this morning, servant leadership, and another value that we value, which is creativity and innovation. Excellence, because in the society that we live in, it's easy for you to pay for your child to get an A rather than her work hard for it. It's easy for the workplace for you to get shortcuts to be in it. But then a person who has character as a central part of who they are, they will ensure that excellence is entrenched in them either way. One of the things that stood out for me the other day is some of the leading audit firms. I started my career with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I worked in Kenya and I also worked in UK. But one of the things that has prevailed currently is the fact that organizations are not very much interested in the degrees that people are taking. You find Ernst & Young has dropped the requirement to have a degree. They are not interested in whether you have a first class or a second class upper. And that, I believe, is the trend that we are likely to continue to see because of what I said earlier, that we are entering into a season where this generation is about character. And so what employers are interested in is, what is your character? What are you bringing on board in addition, on top of the first class, on top of the second class upper? Are you able to be a person who is excellent in whatever they do, regardless of whether you're being interviewed, whether you're being supervised or not? Are you able to bring integrity into the workplace? Are you willing to pay the price for that character? I always tell people that my grandparents, when they fought for independence, they paid the price. I know of people who lost their legs, who passed away. With each purpose, there's a price to be paid. Multipartism, you don't need to look far, you just need to be on the internet to see just what price was paid by the previous leaders. As a generation, we need to begin to ask ourselves, are we ready to pay the price for character? Are we ready to have different news headlines? Headlines that go like, a person who is not getting an A, but they're doing the best in their workplace because their character is sorted. I believe we live in a time when it's not the A's that will distinguish people. It's the character, it's the attitudes, it's the skills. And it's the reason we are working with young people, because we believe that if 70% of Africa's population is young guys, but the message that they've had is that you must be corrupt, you must cheat in an exam, what then are we saying that is going to be the fiber of our society? And so as we begin this conversation around excellence, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves as a society, and even as you walk through the workplace this morning, ask yourself, what do I represent? What are my values? I think we talked about values earlier. What are my values? Am I willing to pay the price for those values? As I say, there is no generation that has achieved what they need to achieve without paying the price for it. And I believe that that's a conversation that we need to have more than the conversation of whether the politicians are to blame. The conversation needs to go back to what I believe is, what is my role? One of the things, and that's what I'll conclude with, is one of the things that I love is currently actually within Twitter and social media, there's a challenge that's going on that's called Ubuntu Challenge. Ubuntu is a statement in South Africa that says, I am because we are. It recognizes that you cannot be excellent, you cannot be great if the people around you are not great. And so it's I am because we are. And as a society, we need to begin to do that. We need to begin to ask, am I thinking about just myself? Am I thinking about just excelling alone? Am I thinking about whatever it takes for me to be an A student is all the only thing I'm going to do? Or am I thinking in terms of Ubuntu? I am because we are. That's what I challenge you to do this morning. As you go to work, serve if you're the CEO, serve the people who work for you. And if you are a junior person in an organization, serve your CEO. It begins with the small things, because I'm a Christian and I believe that if you're faithful with little, God can entrust you with more. And as a continent, we need to begin to be faithful with a little. And the little for us in this moment is character. And if we are faithful with that little, which is our character, we will begin to progress to be a continent that is remembered for greater things. So a challenge to you, are you faithful with the little spaces that God gives you this morning? Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Before even time, I think you were left with, a minute to go and some few seconds. Thank you very much. And of course, you've raised a raft of issues when it comes to character and asking probably questions about our nobility of character, right? What is your character? I mean, what do you actually project out there when you walk into the office? Do you exude confidence? Do you actually showcase excellence? Also, are you a servant leader, right? Innovation and creativity also is very key when it comes to, pursuing excellence and also trying to having that nobility of character. Thank you very much, Esther. Up next, we have Dr. Vincent Ogutu. And Dr. Vincent Ogutu is a Dean, is a Vice Dean, Executive Talent Development from Strathmore University. He's a full-time lecturer in organizational behavior, leadership, and entrepreneurship at Strathmore Business School. He has a PhD in organization management from Rutgers Business School, NJ. He also holds an MSc in Financial Economics from the University of London and a BA in Economics from the University of Nairobi. He is a current research in meaningful work, and particularly social entrepreneurship has given him a newfound clarity in his career path. I should say that he's a Fulbright scholar at the United States, 2009-2014, and a raft of other issues, of course, very glowing recommendations and a good profile as well. He's going to be speaking to us on the subject, making a difference. And Dr. Ogutu, you have 10 minutes starting now.
Good morning, Kenyans. It's great to be here. I thank you for this honor and privilege of sharing what I know that could shed light on this topic that we are looking at today. So we're looking at excellence, and especially the power of excellence. Those are the words that I latched onto more, the power of excellence. Because when you look at excellence, you want to ask yourself, why should I even bother trying to be excellent? Because imagine a student, we were talking about university students getting recruited to be in sleeper cells. They would ask themselves, why should I bother trying to be excellent when after I finish, I'm not going to be rewarded for it? And a lot of people might have the same feeling. Why should I bother being excellent in my company when I will not be rewarded for it? And so they don't even start. So I usually go back to the question of why. Why should I bother to be excellent? And that's what I really want to address here. Because if you understand why it's important to be excellent, then you actually can see the power of excellence. You can make a huge difference in society if you understand what it means to be excellent and the power that you have when you become excellent. So we'll go into this whole notion of why become excellent. And I put it to you that it's because if you're excellent, you can make a difference in the planet, you can make a difference in your community, you can leave a legacy, you will be very happy yourself. So it all comes down to the why. Why would I bother trying to be excellent? So I've spent the past 6 years studying meaningful work and meaningful lives, purposeful lives, and trying to understand what it is that we're here for. Why do we exist, and what is the secret of happiness, you could put it. And the answer that I think I've found is that if you make a difference in people's lives, then that is what gives the greatest meaning to you. So if you ever want to live a deeply meaningful life, all you have to do is ask yourself, what difference do I make? When I work, when I study, whatever it is that I do, what difference does it make in other people's lives? And if you can find an answer to that question and you realize that you do make a positive difference in people's lives, then fantastic. You found the meaning of life, you found the secret of happiness, and you're on your way to becoming excellent. I'm going to tell you a story, and this happened last year, actually, early last year. So a friend of mine in New York invited me to speak to some prisoners in a prison in upstate New York, Wallkill Correctional Facility. And he said, I have a speaker series, come on over. I said, I have no idea what I'm going to tell those prisoners because I've never been in a prison. I just can't relate. I don't know what I'll tell them. He said, no, I'm sure you can find something useful to tell them. So send me a topic and come on over. So I playfully sent him a topic, how to be the richest person on the planet. Tell them I'm going to talk about that. So as I'm driving towards the prison, I'm thinking, if I do not deliver on this topic, they're gonna kill me, and they could, so I better deliver on this topic. What am I going to tell them? So I get there, and I was inspired to talk to them about what I call internal wealth, this richness that we carry with us that nobody can take away from us. And I think this ties in with excellence. It's a kind of quality that we carry with us. It's not just the product of what we do, it's something that we are. And so I talked to them about, I started with a story of the Indians who were kicked out of Uganda during Idi Amin's time because they were not African, and they had to start their lives in other countries to start over. And when they did that, they had nothing. They had no collateral, no security, but they had to rebuild their lives. And they were able to do that because they had these skills that enabled them to rebuild their empires. So even though their external wealth was taken away from them, they were truly rich internally. They were able to convert those skills and their creativity and ability to run businesses to start over, and some of them became millionaires again within a few years. So the first point that I made to them is that the kind of wealth you should strive for is internal wealth, something that you carry with you. It's who you are. It's not what you have. And then I started trying to explain to them how to create this wealth, how to effectively become the richest person on the planet. And I started by trying to deconstruct some of the assumptions that we make. We all think if I want to be excellent, there are certain credentials that I must have. There are certain places that I have to go to, certain schools that I have to go to, a certain amount of money that I have to have. And so we put it on all these external things that we want to happen for us to be excellent, when in fact, everything we need is right here. We always have the ability to become excellent wherever we are, no matter what we're doing. So I put it to them that you're in prison now. You think I have to wait until I come out in order to start living again, in order to make that journey and become whatever I want to be. And I told them, you can do it right here. So we looked at an example that I really admire, which is Nelson Mandela. And he became this amazing person we all admire right there in prison. So they tried to break his spirit when he was in prison. But he realized if I let them do that, then I can't help my people. I can't lead my people. So I owe it to them to stay strong and not to crack under this pressure. And so the more pressure they heaped on him, the stronger he became. You become as strong as the weights that you lift, for those of you who can relate because you go to gyms and you lift dumbbells. You become as strong as the pressure that you're up against. So he leveraged the pressure he was up against to become excellent. And he did it so gracefully that he won the trust of his oppressors. So when he came out, everyone trusted him, both the black population in South Africa and the white population. They knew that he had forgiven them from his heart. He truly was excellent. He was a good person. He was rich. So I told them, we want to be rich like that. We want to have that internal wealth. And so what I put to you is that if you're trying to be excellent, you don't have to wait for certain things to happen. Right where you are, you can find meaning, you can find a purpose, and you can live it out. It's just a question of understanding how to do it. And the way to understand it is finding that connection. How will I make a difference in other people's lives through what I do? About a month ago, just after I defended my dissertation, I was talking to somebody in the United States. I was still there. And I told him what I had been researching. And he said, oh, come on, Vincent, you can't say that everyone can be excellent, that everyone can find a purpose in life and can lead a deeply meaningful life. And I said, sure, I can. And he said, okay, let's take the example of somebody on the George Washington Bridge who's just at the toll booth, just receiving payments from people and cars that are flashing by. It's the most boring job you could imagine. And I guess over here we could think about if you're doing a front office job, you're giving tickets, maybe you're a bank teller, whatever it is. It's a very, very routine kind of stuff that you're doing. And then the question was, how can that ever be meaningful? It's just so boring. And my answer to him was, hey, when you're receiving that money and giving back that change, you don't have to do it in a mechanical way. You could say, there's your ticket, sir, have a great day. And you say it with a lot of passion and you smile, and then the person looks up in surprise. They're not used to someone being so joyful and cheerful and talking to them like that. And so you've picked them up. They start the day on an excellent footing, and wherever it is they're driving, they'll get to work and they'll be in a good mood, and people will say, oh, great, the boss is in a good mood. And then they're in a good mood too. And then they all go back to their homes and they're still in a good mood. And so if I'm this person on the toll booth and I'm thinking about it, I don't just receive money and give tickets for a living. I light up people's lives with what I do. And if I had this amazing vision where I could see the impact of what I do, then I would see that I made a difference in the lives of maybe thousands of people just through my tiny little actions every day. So look for that way in which your work makes a difference, and you will be truly excellent. All the best to you.
Dr. Vincent, thank you very much. Right, so are you mining that rich repository of wealth that is within you, right? God has endowed you with very rich resources within you. Are you extracting that to be a person who is making some meaningful change in the society? And Vincent, Dr. Vincent is the why guy. He's asking, why do you do the things you do? Have you ever sat down and asked yourself, why am I doing what am I doing? I mean, why do I do what I do? He's the why guy. And of course, we're going to look deeply into that much, much later in the course of the program. Right now, I want to introduce our next speaker, Chris Okemo. Chris Okemo is a pastor, a psalmist, a writer, revivalist, mentor, influencer, and a great visionary. Chris Atemo is also the founder of and senior pastor of New Birth Covenant Church, a multicultural and non-denominational church whose head office at Syokimau, Kenya. Rev Atemo, together with his wife, Pastor Beryl Atemo, runs mentorship program for men and women. The Mandate, I like it, man and date, and the Mandate. Yeah, very good coinage there. And Rivers and Not Divas, respectively, which helps people of all races and backgrounds address specific needs. Also, he's the founder and director of Chris Atemo School of Leadership, and is speaking to us this morning on the subject of, I'm trying to look at that paper of mine. Chris, you remind me, there we go, living a life of excellence. And you have 10 minutes, starting now.
Good morning. I'm so delighted to be here this morning, and I'm going to go very quickly into what I need to present today. Such great presentations that have come before me, and because I've got this background from church, I've got to really discipline myself to bring in the point so that I don't speak for 3 hours. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble with the ball. But as I said earlier, excellence is a disposition. It is a mentality. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And you can't change a man without changing his thoughts. That means that the information that somebody gets forms who he is. In fact, I always say that information determines your inner formation. And Dr. Vincent was talking about the inner wealth. And that inner wealth, who you are on the inside, is as a result of what you know, what you hear, what you watch. And so if we are going to change our thoughts, then if we're going to become better people and shape our minds, shape our thoughts, then what we read, what we listen to, who we listen to, what we watch is going to be very significant, because that's exactly what is going to be planted in us. Thoughts are seeds, words are seeds, information is seeds, and they begin to germinate in your heart, in your spirit, in your mind, and eventually you become what you've been listening to. Inadvertently, you become who you've been listening to. If you hang around people and they have a certain character trait, after a while you find that their character trait has just passed on to you, and you were not even thoughtful about it. You were not thinking that it would rub on you. If you listen to the previous speaker, he's got quite a transatlantic accent, and I could tell you it's because of who he was listening to. And that's just how thoughts shape us, words shape us. Because even our speech, children learn to speak from what they hear, the importance of hearing and the importance of the information that is always before you. So if we're going to become better people, and if we're going to live a life of excellence, we've got to have excellent information. We've got to have extraordinary thoughts around us, and people who are shaping our lives also, people who've gone ahead of us, people who have done more than we do, people who challenge us, people who make us feel like there is more that can come out of life. There's more that I can do. We need people who will inspire us. But just quickly to go into the things that I want to share with you this morning, if you're going to live a life of excellence, regardless of where you are at, whether you are in business, you're in politics, whether you're in a career, whether you're at school, number one is to know your trade. I'm going to give you about 8 T's. One is to know your trade, because you cannot be excellent at nothing. There's got to be that very thing that you do, your skilled handicraft. I'm in public speaking, I'm in mentorship, I'm in leadership training. That's where I am. That's my trade. My trade is to talk. Now, if I lose my voice right now, I'll have to find a new job. But you've got to find out what is your trade, because that's where you're going to be excellent at. And if you do not discover your trade, then you will have, first of all, the pursuit of finding out what were you created to do. It's important for you to know your trade. The second thing that I will share with you, and I'm doing this very fast and very briefly, is to define your task. To define your task. And by task, I mean the piece of work that you need to do or to undertake. That means that even in your purpose, you're going to have to break down things into goals. You're going to have to break them down into what are you doing today? What are you doing for the week? What are you doing for the month? What are you doing for the year? If that is also not defined, you may have these high goals that you never meet because you have not set your target, or rather you have not defined your task. You have not defined what exactly you're going to start with, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. The third thing that I will share with you this morning is to develop your talents. If you're going to be excellent, develop your talents. We all are gifted and we have the talents. But then what do you do with that talent? I may be gifted at music, but how much time do I use to develop that music? I may be gifted at art, but how much time do I use to develop that? You can always become better at the things that you naturally have from God. So you got to develop your talents. You've got to spend some time. You cannot separate excellence from diligence. You've got to be really diligent if you're going to be excellent, because you're going to put in your time, your energy, your resources. You're going to invest in yourself first of all before you invest in whatever you're doing. So it's important for you to develop your talents, which is your mental capability or something. Then number 4, sharpen your tools. Sharpen your tools. Make sure, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, if the iron be blunt, if the axe head is blunt, then you need a lot of strength to cut the wood. So if I have blunt iron, blunt axe, I will use a lot of energy. And my thought is usually that if you have empty brains, you will have a very tired body. You've got to really sharpen your tools. The things that you use to achieve and accomplish your purposes, you've got to always make sure that you are on top of your game. Now, number 5 is refine your techniques. Refine your techniques. I walked in here, and I'm the only one still using a laptop, praise God. But, you've got to refine your techniques, which is the methods of achieving one's purpose. There's various ways, and probably what you were doing last year, without really changing the mission, you may have to redefine how you're doing it this year. Because we're living in changing days, we're living in changing times, we're being told about every generational struggle, and sometimes it is still the same struggle taking a different shape. And you've got to refine your techniques, you've got to change. Sometimes you get there are things you're confrontational about before that you may be diplomatic, you may need to be diplomatic about, because eventually what you want is to achieve your goals. So you've got to refine your techniques, your manner of performance. Always make sure that you're in tune. Number 6, maximize your time. And time is the greatest asset in the pursuit of excellence. Time is the greatest asset. You maximize your time. The greatest gift that God gave man is time. It is time. And that's the first thing that he created. You know, I've got my interesting thought towards that the first thing when God said, let there be light, and there was light, the first thing that he created was time. And time is your greatest asset. And time is a very poor secret keeper. You know, how you use time, time will shout about it. So you've got to really know how you use your time and maximize it. Make sure that every time is meaningful to you. Because eventually, as we say that everything, you are a result of your thoughts, eventually everything that you do is a result of the seconds that you use. You won't just come up from nowhere and become this great person that you've always wanted to be. It begins with your seconds, your minutes. It begins with your days. It begins with your routines. And most of the time, we succeed at the things that we do boring routines about. If we're only moved by the exciting things, we will never achieve much. You've got to develop a discipline, got to develop determination, and go through daily routines and be able to just work your time well. The seventh thing that I've got to share is, and especially if you're in leadership, is to grow your team. It's to grow your team. If you're going to be excellent, you cannot be excellent alone. We've been told that. So you grow your team. Grow everybody that is around you. Make sure you invest in them. Make sure they understand that they're important. Make sure they understand that they're as important as you are, because you're only as good as the people that are with you. You cannot be greater than the team that is around you. And then the last thing that I will talk about is meet your targets. Meet your targets. Nothing speaks of your performance more than your performance. Nothing speaks of your performance more than your performance. So if you set to do something, and that talks about integrity, you know. If I promise that I'm going to be somewhere at 7, I've got to be there at 7. That becomes a brand. When we talk about branding, it is not just the name or the logo. It is what do you represent. And so when you meet your targets, you put yourself above the normal people, because anybody can take your word and they know that you will deliver your word. Because in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All right, God bless you.
Much. Chris Atemo there, of course, with very compelling information. He says that your information determines your inner formation. So what are you feeding on every day when you're on WhatsApp, when you're on Facebook, when you are also on Twitter, right? What sort of information are you gathering from social media? What is your trade? Have you defined your purpose, right? Are you sharpening your tool, all the tools of your trade, right? And he says empty brains. If you have an empty brain, you have a tired body. I like that. Right, up next we have Phyllis Wakiaga. Phyllis Wakiaga, you know, I was just reading the way it is from the screen right there. And she is a CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturer, not as the way it's put on the screen there. She's not a designate, but she is a CEO, and has been the head of policy research and advocacy unit at Kenya Association of Manufacturer since 2013. And she is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and holds a master's in business administration from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Also, she's an alumni of Swedish Institute Management program on sustainable business leadership and corporate social responsibility. Phyllis, you've got 10 minutes. Let me just try and reset my phone here. Starting now, and she's going to speak to us on the subject of, where's Phyllis? The pursuit for excellence. The pursuit for excellence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank my fellow panelists. I've been actually...
Just it a bit. The microphone? No, there, that one. Yeah.
I've actually enjoyed listening.
Then, yeah,
to your views
just
about
move to the left a
excellence.
bit. All right. I've taken some seconds from you, so I'm going to add you.
You need to add them. Thank you.
Starting now, let's
Yeah.
go.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to listen to my fellow panelists about their views on excellence. Good morning, Kenyans. Thank you for joining us this morning as we share our personal journeys on excellence. I want to take an approach where, first of all, I will define what is excellence. I will talk about why excellence. How do you pursue excellence? Because I think all of us need to pursue it daily. And then I will talk about my personal journey to excellence. So first of all, in terms of definition, what is excellence? I tried to Google in the dictionary to figure out what is this excellence that everyone keeps talking about. And the dictionary says that it's about distinction, it's about greatness, it's about superiority and quality. For me, at a personal level, excellence is the opposite of mediocrity. And why should we be excellent as individuals? I think because it makes the difference. That's what makes the difference in the world. It makes the difference between being ordinary and extraordinary. It makes the difference really between being average and making a difference in this world. It makes the difference between living and leaving a legacy. So for me, it is important that we are excellent. And I ask myself the question, how do we become excellent? Because as I said, it's a daily pursuit. It's something you never quite achieve. First of all, for me, it's beginning with the end in mind. We have to be focused. We have to know where we want to go so that we take the steps there. The best way, in my view, to remain focused is really to shut out the noise. Be very clear of where you're going and keep out the noise that is not taking you there. Secondly, we need to surround ourselves with people who are excellent. You're known by the company you keep as an individual. So if you surround yourself with excellent people, you're definitely on the journey to being excellent. Thirdly, for me, to be excellent, you have to learn. Because it's a journey, something that you continuously improve every day. What the pastor spoke about sharpening your sword, that's really about learning, the new lessons that you have and how you incorporate them into your daily life. And once you learn, learning is not enough. You have to apply whatever you have learned into your life and your journey towards excellence. The next thing, in my view, towards being excellence is having an attitude of excellence. It really does make the difference to have the right attitude and the right mindset. The Bible actually says, and I had someone quoting earlier, that whatever is true, whatever is just, whatever is pure, if there is excellence in anything, think about these things. Because if you think excellent thoughts, you're definitely raising yourself and you're definitely on the journey to becoming excellent. Then I want to share my personal journey on being excellent, because it's something I've been trying to pursue since I was a child, and the people who have shaped that journey. First of all, my parents. Because for my parents, there's nothing like being average. You have to always do your best. And it is something that they instilled in us as we grew up every day. Every time you would go to school and come back with your report form, the main question was, have you done your best? And for me, that really challenged me as I grew up, as I went through primary school, as I went to university. I always tried in whatever circumstances to do my best and go the extra mile. If you need to have your work done by 5 o'clock, why not try to have it done earlier? If you need to be in the office by 8, why can't you go by 7:30? So that you're always exceeding expectations. If your boss requires work, why not do it over and above what they expect? So for me, the first lesson is really from my parents, who instilled the seed in me. And as a mother of 3, it is something I'm trying to instill in my children and challenge them every day. So as parents, I want to encourage you that whatever seeds you sow in your children will determine how excellent they become in life. And you need to keep trying to make them even better people every day. The second thing, in my view, that shapes who I am in terms of excellence is the Bible. I'm a Christian who believes in the Bible and the principles in the Bible, because it's important to have values. And personally, I believe the best book on values is the Bible. So I would like to encourage all of us, take time to read the Bible, reflect on the principles in the Bible. There are many stories about people who are excellent in the Bible. From the beginning, we have people like Joseph in the Bible, we have David and many great kings who we can learn from about excellence. And for them, what made the difference between being mediocre and being excellent was, first of all, listening to the voice of God. And I think it's important that we are centered and that we read the Bible from a personal level. And then the third thing I want to share about what shaped my journey on excellence was a book by Stephen Covey, which I think many of us have read. It's the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read that book when I was 18 years old, and it's been one of the things that has really shaped who I am today. So it talks about 7 habits, which I think I can take some time to share. The first habit is that we have to be proactive. Proactivity means that we have to realize that there's a space between an action and how we react to it, and choosing how to respond to situations around us. The other habit is beginning with the end in mind. In this habit, Stephen Covey challenged us all to lie in a coffin and imagine. In the story, it starts with a mass and everyone is walking into a church and you're part of that. And you see people crying and everyone around looks sad. You see your family members and your friends. And when you get to the front, you see a coffin and you're the one sleeping in there. And he asks you, what would you want all the people who stand up to say about you? And when you begin with the end in mind, you know how to live your life so that when you die, which you will, you leave a legacy. So one of the habits that he instilled in me is that you have to have a personal mission statement. Be very clear about where you want to go in life. Define what success is to you as an individual and stay true to that. So it's important for us to sit, define what it means to us, because sometimes we'll be striving to achieve what success is in someone else's terms, which will eventually then not lead us to our pursuit to excellence. The next thing is to put first things first. And what are these first things? They all depend on us as individuals. For some of us, it's our career. For some of us, it's our families. For some of us, it's our God. But we need to know what those are and put them first so that you give them the highest priority in your life as you live your daily life. That way you become excellent because you're doing the things that matter most to you as an individual. The other habit he shares is about thinking win-win. That at the end of the day, there is no point of having a win-lose situation where you come out victorious while the other person comes out with nothing. So in our interactions and our daily lives, we always have to try and think how to have a win-win situation. The other thing which is normally a challenge for everyone is that he says that we should seek first to understand and then be understood. This is really about listening. How do we listen to others? Do we just hear and not listen? Let's take time to listen if we're going to be excellent. The sixth habit is about synergies. Partnerships, working together and interacting well with those around us. Because, as someone said, Ubuntu is very clear that I am because we are. Life is really about all of us together and how we synergize and move forward. And the seventh habit is about sharpening your sword. Daily renewal. Because he says that it's important that when you're asked to cut a tree and you're given 7 days, you spend 6 days sharpening your sword. And this sharpening is the daily renewal, whether it means that you're a Christian and you read your devotion every day. Spend time to just do the inner renewal so that you become a better person every day. So what is my parting shot on excellence? First of all, I represent the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I'm the CEO, and we seek to inspire global competitiveness. And for me, that is excellence. At individual levels, can we inspire global competitiveness in what we do? I want to tell us that really excellence is a gradual result of trying to be better and something I believe as Kenyans we can all strive to achieve. And I want to encourage us to strive to be excellent in everything we do, at a personal level, at an organizational level, at a national level. And half of the things we are discussing in the news about the moral fabric of society and the value system, we can deal with if we daily wake up and try to be excellent. It has been said that if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. That, in my view, is the daily pursuit to excellence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phyllis Wakiaga, who is the CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And of course, we've raised a raft of issues of when it comes to excellence. You talk of also tenets from Stephen Covey's book, and you've gone through them. First thing first, we are wondering, let's now get to the point where we get to discuss all these things that you've raised. We've got around 10 minutes to go. So I want you also to be very pithy and terse with your views. And Phyllis, yeah, she's got her mic on. Is it okay? Just, Phyllis. Phyllis. Right. Okay. Let's begin from Esther. Esther, we'll start with your speech. Let me try and get my ducks in a row here, where you're discussing about character, leadership in the country right now. We can see we're grappling with a lot of issues when it comes to morality with our leaders. You know, some of them embroiled in cases of rape. You know, there's corruption which is so entrenched within government. Look at our economy right now, the way it's really contracting. And we've always been discussing about also the nobility of character within our leaders. how do we take this country to the next level when it comes to issues of governance and ethics? Very briefly. And all of you also can weigh in. It doesn't have to be on your speeches. You can chip in.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my personal view is it has to start at individual level.
Individual level.
We are very good at looking at the country from a political perspective, but I always think, when you think about devolution, for example, many of the people who've become county governors and even MCAs, they're not
Yes.
people who were politicians before, which tells you the problem is not probably at the top, it's at the bottom. And so we must look at ethics and governance from an individual level. It then aggregates and becomes at the country level. It's not possible to look at ethics and governance from a country level. Ideally, it would be. But the reality is the government is made up of the people. And so if the people's perspectives on ethics and governance are wishy-washy,
Yes.
and that's why I was giving simple examples of salon. If I go to my salon and my first perspective is I can be greedy and make more money in the salon, it means even if I become an MCA or if I become the president, there won't be any difference. So I think we must start from an individual perspective.
An individual perspective.
How am I viewing corruption? How am I making sure that I am not the same thing that I'm talking about?
All right. And I know Vincent, Dr. Vincent is very gun-shy about politics, right?
Yeah.
But still, you're talking about making a difference. And we thought when we elect our leaders, especially when it comes to cabinet secretaries, we have the technocrats, you know, and people say, why, let's do away with the politicians, let's get the technocrats. They have the business acumen, they actually will bring it on the table. We'll see a discernible difference. But when we look around right now, it is not really the results that we desired, right? Yeah. We are talking about devolving corruption, right? Even right now, you know, there is the issue of vernacular stations. We want to come out of being ethnicized as a country, but still now, with our structured system, we are getting it entrenched deeply and deeply into it. How do we make a difference?
I want to go back to something that Phyllis just talked about.
Yes.
So when you're lying in that coffin and you're wondering what people are going to say about you, it's all about your legacy. What did you do when you were alive? What difference did you make? And so I think maybe some of the leaders who are corrupt are being very narrow-minded. They're looking at what can I get right now for myself? How can I enrich myself? But they're not looking to that moment when they'll be lying in that coffin and what they'll be remembered for. So it's pretty obvious who's taking what. Is that what you want to be remembered for? I was a thief, I stole, I made people miserable, I impoverished a whole nation. Is that what you want to be remembered for? So you want to be remembered for having made a difference. And one of the things that I find is people throw up their hands and say, we're powerless. This is how the society is. This is how life is. I can't do anything. And I'm very intrigued by somebody like, say, Michuki. He lived in the same society we all live in. He could have thrown up his hands and said, I'm powerless. But wherever he was put, he actually made a difference. What is it about him that gave him that ability? And now we remember him for that. He might have had his faults here and there, and I know the media will fault him for what he did and coming in and, you know, but you look at the difference that he made. That's what people talk about. That's what they remember. So if our leaders, if our leaders just focused on making a difference, doing something that will raise this nation, that's what they want to be remembered for. It would be fantastic. It would set the bar. I know it's an individual journey, as Esther has said, but somehow people follow the example that the leaders set. So if they set us this selfless example where they're making a difference, they'll be happy, we'll be happy, we'll remember them for the right reason. So that's my challenge to them. Right,
and you're the why guy. You're saying we should question ourselves. Why am I doing what I'm doing right now?
Right.
I mean, why do I wake up early in the morning, 3:34, maybe 5, you're in the office. You're the why guy. Are you questioning yourself, Chris, why you do what you do?
Right. I think that if we are going to change, first of all, I've got some 2 or 3 different thoughts right now.
Sure.
It's difficult to change society from the top. It's difficult because whether you're putting in technocrats, whether you're putting in politicians, these people came from the same families, same schools, same environment, same thought pattern, different careers. So their value systems are basically nearly the same. If we're going to change that, we've got to look at our education system and what are we teaching the children. It is easier to change it from the children than to try and change the adults. You know, we can make all the noise every day.
So we just let them
No,
taper off with their bad characters, they die.
You see now,
then we have
talking
new
about, you see, if we're going to talk about the wise and that, then we're also going to have to talk about posterity.
Yes.
Because if I'm thinking about why do I do what I do, if I want to affect this country positively, if I want to affect my generation well, then I've got to think longer term than just this. And I was just trying to tell you why no matter who we put in certain positions, we seem to get the same results, because they're just people who are cut out of the same cloth. Our expectations as people who are led must also put pressure on the people who lead us. Why do we put them there in the first place?
Yes.
You know, but I will also say, and it's good that we're on media today, I would also say that, you know, you in the media have a very great role to play. As I said, information does determine the information.
Yeah.
So there's also, what do you glorify? You know, what do you glorify? Because I'll grow up, I'm watching all this that is being glorified, and then I aspire to be the same, because humanity was created to conform to an image. And the images that we look at begin to shape who we want to be. So if we use also the power of the media to begin to glorify the reward for service and fulfillment, rather than giving focus on people who are in positions for their self-preservation, I think we're going to change some generation. I think we're going to deliver some people. We may not deliver everybody, but I think we're going to redefine the course of how things go.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And you know, there's a knot that you tied on with also Phyllis on the sharpening your tools. We've seen our leaders, they've been going abroad to sharpen their tools when it comes to using iPad. On a lighter note indeed. But I want to come to Phyllis. Yeah, and they're sharpening their tools anyway. That's aside. But I wanted to talk about you also being the CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. You know, we know the issue of quality. And they always say, first time right all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. When we look across also within the manufacturing sector, especially in Kenya, we know they've been complaining. Yesterday we saw the commissioner of KRA, yeah, in Parliament, and people are complaining about capital gains, the way it's really getting adversely affected right now. Look at the interest rates right now. The quality of things that we put out there, when we have milk, for instance, that is contaminated in the country right now, what does it project to the image of excellence of the manufacturers?
I just want to say that quality is based on a standard, and a standard is laid out. And as Kenya Association of Manufacturers, our members adhere to the standards that are set out. So I'll move from that, from the milk to excellence. I think to be excellent also...
You're very diplomatic here.
To be excellent also, you have to have a standard.
Yes.
And you have to set the right standard. I like what my fellow panelist, the pastor, has said about celebrating positive role models. Because at the end of the day, that becomes the standard we set for our society. It becomes the standard we set for our youths and ourselves to look up to. So if we have the right thing that we are aspiring to be, we are then striving towards excellence and reducing the celebration of things that are not right. We also need to celebrate legacies and not money.
Yes.
Because a lot of what we think is positive in our society today is having a lot of money. But does that really make a difference? It is your character that makes a difference. It is the little things you do. And can we achieve that? I think we can. I remember the story Wangari Maathai used to give about the hummingbird that saw a forest on fire and took water to try and put out the fire.
Yes.
And the other animals laughed. But eventually they joined that hummingbird and put out the fire in the forest. So I think it starts at an individual capacity. From wherever you are, do the best you can to be excellent. And those around you will pick that, and it will spread to the organizations and to the nation that we have. And then let's celebrate it in the media.
In the media.
Yes, thank you.
Right. I wish we had a lot of time to actually discuss here, but we are really strapped for time. But this is a very wonderful set of panel, and I think we should be here discussing this particular topic another time. Yeah. But I want you to just give your headline thoughts, right? When you look in that particular coffin and you see yourself, Esther, what do you think? What legacy are you leaving? That is the headline thoughts I want you to think about. What legacy am I leaving with? Let's begin with you. When I go looking into the casket,
Well, that's kind of scary.
I see
but
myself.
I am a typical Kenyan, and I'll be scared by that. But I think for me, the goal is to have equipped young adults to be values-driven leaders and entrepreneurs in Africa. That's my vision. That's my goal. I believe in what they say, that we need to start with a younger generation.
Yes.
They're open. They are willing to learn. They've had a lot of voices that have told them that it's not possible for them to be different. But as we engage with them, as I engage with them, we begin to change that. And in the process, we are getting entrepreneurs and leaders who are willing to pay the price by being a different generation, which is excellent, which serves, and which is seeking out for fulfillment. That's
Dr. Vincent,
my story.
the inner wealth that you talked about, right? Say
Right.
something about it, Tasli.
Yeah, I think if you really want to be rich, and this is something we all want to do in this country, it's driving some of the good things and some of the bad things as well, the selfishness and corruption that we see. So if you want to be rich, focus on the kind of wealth no one can take away from you, that will always be with you, that is deeply rewarding, that will give you the happiness that you hope you will get by having the money. You can have that happiness right now. So seek that wealth by leading a deeply meaningful life.
Yes.
And what will give the greatest meaning to anything you do is whether you're impacting the community positively. You're not just living for yourself, you're living for the others. If you find that connection, then you're truly rich. You become very, very rich and a very happy person.
Right. Finally, nothing speaks of your performance more than your performance. I like that.
Right.
Briefly, as we're winding up.
I think at the end of it all, I want to be able to look back and say, I served God. And in that service of God is that I emptied all the resources He put within me into the earth. The scripture said that when God put man on the earth, He said, replenish the earth and subdue it. And I would want, at the end of my journey, to know that I replenished the earth. I replenished the people around me. I gave them all the wisdom that I had, all the abilities I've poured in. I've left a legacy. I've raised other people. I've taught them all that I knew. I've shown them the right path to go. Even if I never get there myself, like a Moses, who never got there, but he showed them. And I would be fulfilled knowing that I served God and I served my generation. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Chris Atemo. Phyllis.
For me, I think excellence is not an act, it's a habit. It's something that we have to continually strive to be.
Yes.
So I think for all of us, I want to encourage us to pursue excellence daily, set the standards and live by them. And at the end of our lives, the most important thing is really to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you coming through this morning. I've enjoyed and I've learned a lot. I loved it. I loved it. Right. I just want to ask you, what legacy will you leave? Right. They've talked on a raft of so many issues when it comes to excellence. But one man also was flipping through the papers one day and he went to the obituaries, and alas, he was shocked to see his face in the obituaries. And he read through, the comments on the obituaries, and he wondered, is this what the world is going to be thinking of me when I'm gone? Actually, this was very accidental because the brother had died and they took his picture and placed it in the obituaries. And it really said, this man is known to be the innovator of the dynamites that is responsible for the killings around the world. And he said, no, I need to change the course of my story. I want to be a man who can make a difference. And he came up with the Alfred Nobel Peace Prize. So what difference are you making, right? That's the question we're asking you. Of course, we're moving on. We want to ask you this question, which is a question of the day for the rest of the segment of the program. When did Churchill first start on NTV? When did Churchill show first start on NTV? Make sure you hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20505 is our SMS portal. We shall be getting your reactions much later in the course of the program with Kobe Kihara, who's coming up next.